What's up, gang? Today I'm going to be showing you how to build a rustic farmhouse coat rack, and we're going to be using this awesome hardware that I found online, and I'll leave links to all of this stuff in the description of the video. Let's get started. So here's what I'm going to be using. I've got a 2x6 that's at least 22 inches in length. I'll need at least 18 inches in 2x4. And you're going to need at least 32 inches of a 1x8 and 24 inches of a 1x6 and a 1x4. We'll start with our 2x6, and I'll measure out to 11 inches from both sides, making sure both sides were square. We'll take this to the miter box, and I'll get one cut, and then I'll transfer that first one over for our second cut. That way we get consistent measurements. Now, we're not quite done with the 2x6s yet. If you look closely here, you'll see that the top shelf will be notched into the 2x6. So what I'll do is over here at the table saw is I'll just cut those rounded edges on these 2x6s on each side. I'll slap on my PPE. And for those of you wondering why I don't have ear protection in, joke's on you. I've got these little Easy Twists earplugs. I highly recommend them. They're not sponsored at all, but these are the best. You just can't see them because of my cap. Let her rip. You know what's wild is half of my viewers aren't subscribed to my channel. So I humbly ask, if you would, smack that subscribe button. Next, we'll go ahead and get our 1x8 cut roughly to 33 inches with the circular saw. Ultimately, we'll get this cut to 32 inches over here at the miter saw. That 1x8 that we just cut is going to be our top shelf. Now, if you look in the photo, the top shelf on this one had some pieces that were glued together. So we're going to mimic that by putting a couple of dado cuts along our 1x8. Let me demonstrate. My 1x8 measures out to 7 1/4. So what I'm going to do is pull over 1 7/8 from my right side, and from that 1 7/8 mark, I'll pull over an additional 1 7/8, and from that mark, I'll do the same until I reach the edge. And that should give us equal spacing. So I got 1 7/8 from the left side and 1 7/8 from the right side, and that should be smack dab in the center. I'll get my blade height set to 1/8 inch. And we'll go ahead and make these dado cuts at those 3 marks. Now, with summer coming up, you may be thinking, why are you doing a coat rack? Well, technically, this could be whatever rack you want it to be. So during the summer, I'll market it as a hat rack. Now I'm going to cut those same dados on the edge. Now, you don't have to do this if you're not comfortable doing this cut. However, I'm comfortable, so I'm going to do it. I receive a lot of wisecracks in the comments when I do dangerous things, and not that this is dangerous. However, you do have to have a steady hand. And about that chalked guard on my circular saw, whenever you chalk your guard, just remember, remove the chalk once you're done cutting. And always remember, if you're not comfortable doing what I'm showing, don't do it. We'll set our top shelf aside with our 2x6s, and we're going to work on the 2 backers. Instead of using a separate 1x6 and a separate 1x4, I'm just going to take the rest of this 1x8 that I have left over, and I'm going to get it cut down to 32 inches for now. Now, back over here at the table saw, I'm going to rip one to 4 inches, and that should leave me with 3 1/2 for my other piece. If you went the 1x6 route, just rip that 1x6 to 4 inches, and then use your 1x4 for your next backer. And we'll go ahead and set those aside with the 2x6s and that shelf, and get to work on the 2x4 section of this piece. Now, I'll only need about 16 or 17 inches of this 2x4, but I'm going to keep it long, and I'm going to show you why. But first, let's take a look at the 2x4s on the picture. So if you look closely, at the top of the 2x4, you've got about 2 inches and then it's about 8 inches long. At the bottom, you got about 1 inch. So let me show you how to get that cut made. You're gonna wanna have a surface that you can clamp to. And for me, I'm just gonna clamp it right here to my table saw rail. Make sure your end is square. And what I'll do is I'll pull over 2 inches at the very top. And then I'll pull down from that top to 8 inches. And at that 8-inch mark, I'm going to pull in at 1 inch. I'll square that 8-inch mark over. Then I'll take my big 12 and connect the 2-inch mark and 1-inch mark and scribe that line. And I'll be using my circular saw to make this cut. As a content creator, there is nothing more valuable than a like and subscribe from our audience. It shows the YouTube algorithm that you want more of the content and helps us get more eyeballs and continue to grow. So be sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and share this content. It truly makes all the difference in the world. I'll go ahead and take that piece I just cut and scribe it right at that same cut and make another one. I'm going to get this piece laid out and cut, and while I do that, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. Just recently, I received one of my new favorite machines for the shop, the Bamboo Lab A1 Combo. It's an entry-level 3D printer, and let me tell you, I thought I'd never be able to figure out how to set it up and use it. However, I was surprised how user-friendly this really was. I'm about as non-tech savvy as anyone, but I was able to figure out this machine the same day I opened it. I was able to assemble everything in under 30 minutes. Once it was all put together, the only thing left to do was calibrate the machine. I was ready to print my own stuff right away. There is a one-click printing from Maker's World that people upload their own designs and anyone can download them and start printing. You can scroll through Maker's World on the Bamboo Handy app or computer. Once you find a design you like, just click on that design, select your printer, and start printing. I have a number of speed squares, so I chose to print out a speed square holder. And this is my first project, so I'm eager to see how it turns out. Another feature I love about the Bamboo Handy app is you can open it up, and in the middle of printing your project, you can just click on devices and it will show you what project you're in the middle of printing and give you your updates with real-time progress reports. A couple hours later, I had a useful accessory for my shop printed and created with the push of a button. The A1 Combo from Bamboo Labs is a top-notch quality machine. It has amazing print quality and is crazy fast. But not only that, this machine is actually affordable and beginner-friendly. Now I just need to make one more. This 3D printer from Bamboo Labs is the only one in its price range that can print more than one color at a time. So if you're looking to start a 3D printing business or just pick it up as a hobby, the Bamboo Lab A1 Combo is your best bet. Check out the link in the pinned comment or the description to find out more about this Bamboo Lab A1 3D printer. And later in this video, I'm going to show you some more useful items that I've learned how to make, and they will not disappoint. But for now, let's go finish up this build. Alright, I got both of those pieces cut, and I'm actually going to be doubling back to our 2x6s. Hear me out. With our shelf being at 32 inches in length, I feel that the 5.5 inch width is just a bit much. So we're just going to get those ripped to 4 inches. Now our very next step, we're going to go ahead with our shelf and we're going to make the notches in the back of the shelf that fit our 4-inch pieces that we just ripped. Once we get those 2 notches cut, that will then determine our 2 backer measurements. We'll go ahead and lay out for the placement of those 4-inch pieces. I'm going to pull in from each side at 1.5 inches. And from those 1.5 inch marks, we'll pull over 4 inches. I'll take my marking wheel and set the thickness of my 4-inch pieces, and that's going to be scribed right at those 2 marks that we just made on both sides. And we'll darken those lines up with a pencil. I'll grab my speed square out of my brand new 3D printed square holder and we'll get those marks squared over. That will come out and that will come out. I'm going to cut these out with our handy dandy jigsaw. Now you can do this with the bandsaw or even at the table saw and cut this out one cut at a time. I prefer using the jigsaw. It just makes quick work of a simple notch. Alright, now we'll get the measurements for our backers and we'll set those 4-inch pieces inside those notches and we'll measure the distance in between. And we've got 20 3/4. I'll take my 4-inch and my 3.5-inch backers and measure over 20 3/4 and get these cut over at the miter box. Alright, before we do anything else, I need to make one last cut on our shelf piece. So let's take a look at the photo one last time. If you look at the photo, the backer at the top rests inside between the two 4-inch pieces. So in order for us to make that happen, I need to take 3/4 of an inch off this middle section. And we'll take care of this over at the bandsaw. I'll get everything marked out for 3/4 of an inch. I'll scribe that line all the way to the next side, just as a reference. And we're going to be cutting this back side off. Just like any great tool, there's always something that irks my nerve. Take for instance my bandsaw. I absolutely love this bandsaw, but like many other bandsaws, the fence irks me. At the back end, there is a good amount of deflection, and deflection is bad. I need a way that I can secure the back end of my fence so my cuts stay accurate. I'm going to head over to my laptop and download the Bamboo Studios, and I'm going to print a featherboard. I've got the file downloaded to my SD card, and I'll take it over to my Bamboo 3D printer and print a brand new featherboard out of thin air. An hour and a half later, I had a brand new featherboard that I could secure my fence with. I was even able to print the plastic pieces that holds the hardware to lock our featherboard in place. I just got back from picking up my hardware that will hold this featherboard in place. This is such a convenience. It just slides right on in there, just like any other featherboard would. And I'll push it up against my fence on the back side and lock that in place. That's not going anywhere. So if there's always something that I don't like about a tool, then there must be something that I don't like about the Bamboo Lab A1, right? Well, yes. The issue is I only have one. I got to get my hands on another one. If you can think it, you can print it. That's how easy this A1 from Bamboo Labs is to use. I'm definitely going to be investing in a second printer from Bamboo Lab. Next, we're going to take our 3.5-inch backer, and I've got my bevel on my table saw set to 45, and we'll rip a 45-degree bevel along the very edge. I'll take a separate 1x that's about 24 inches long and 2 3/4 of an inch wide, and I'll get another 45-degree bevel ripped on this edge as well. Next up, we'll add some pocket holes to our two backers and our shelf. Now for our shelf, I'm going to add 3 pocket holes to the very back on that notch that we made. I got to take off my wings to make that happen because of that notch. Next step, we do some sanding. A lot of sanding. We'll start by installing our upper backer that has that 45-degree bevel down the back side. We'll flip our two 4-inch pieces to the back, and we're going to need a clamp to clamp our backer up flush with the back side. Let me demonstrate here. Make sure your pocket holes are faced up and make sure your bevel is face down. Now just make sure that you're flush with the top of your 4-inch pieces and flush to the back of your 4-inch pieces as well. And we'll add our 1.5-inch pocket screws. Now from the top of our 4-inch pieces, I'll pull down to 2 3/16. We'll take our shelf and fit it right inside of that notch at those 2 3/16 inch marks. And we'll install our pocket screws. Now we'll install our bottom backer, and I need this to be flush to the back side. And I'll add this clamp temporarily just to help it out. And I want to be 1 inch from the very bottom on both sides. We'll install our screws. That is awesome. Now what I'm going to do for structural purposes is drill 2 holes through this 4-inch piece into my shelf and add a couple more screws just for stability. And the next thing we do is add a dab of glue, 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 add a dab of glue. We can give it a rub joint so it stiffens up a bit. We're just lining it up with the center of our 4-inch piece. And we'll let this dry, and I'll meet you back here. We'll give our piece a blow job and get it ready for our stain. Take some of my hook hardware, and I'm looking for maybe 3 hooks for this piece. Now for your piece, just go ahead and lay out your hooks however you seem fit. I'm coming 3 inches off of each side of my 4-inch piece, holding my hardware flush to the top and square and punching those screw hole marks. And I'll pre-drill those holes. And then I'll be setting one directly in the center. When I was installing this hardware for the coat rack, I couldn't help but open up my Bamboo Handy app and search for what kind of coat hangers I could possibly create. I opened up the Bamboo Handy app and searched for coat rack hooks. There were endless options to choose from, but I picked what I thought would look the best for a piece like this. And with the press of a button, I was printing the coat rack hooks that I thought would look great for this piece. I'm so impressed with the Bamboo Lab A1 printer. That's impressive. Now let's talk about hanging this piece. You noticed I put that 45-degree bevel on one of the backers. Well, what we're going to do is take that other piece that we cut that same 45-degree bevel on and cut it to 20 3/4, and that's the distance between the two 4-inch pieces. And right now it's 2 3/4 of an inch wide. I'm going to rip it down to 1 3/4 inches from the long point of this bevel. And we'll put some of that same color stain on this piece. I'll drill 2 pilot holes 16 inches apart. And I've got 2 1/2 Phillips head black screws. And we'll get those started. We'll head over to our wall and we'll find a stud. Make sure we're nice and level. And we're gonna hook that French cleat with that opposing cleat. And wow, holy mackerel, look at that. Would you believe that I made this with pine and poplar? I can't believe how great this poplar turned out after I stained it. I was really worried about that. I've never really heard of staining poplar, so I gave it a shot, and boy, did it ever pay off. I absolutely love this piece. One of my favorites, hands down. Now, don't forget to check out the description for that link to Bamboo Labs, to where you can find out more about that Bamboo Lab A1 3D printer. I highly recommend it. It is so awesome. I've already made several things. I 3D printed some French cleats for some of my smaller tool storage. That took 30 minutes. And we all know we can use a bucket for storage around the shop, just for miscellaneous stuff. This took 2 hours to print. I even printed a cup for my wife's chickens. I have a feeling I'll be printing a lot more of these cups because she has a lot of chickens. I made you something.
I always need these.
Put it on the thing, it'll hang on there. What? Oh yeah, that's slick, boy. You like this? Mm-hmm. Yes. And not only that, but my friend Steve Pretty sent me over a dovetail jig file, and I was able to print out that dovetail jig, and man, it makes a big difference. I really hope this video has inspired you to get in your shop and get creative. And check out that Bamboo Lab 3D printer. I'm seriously blown away. Skål.